We are live, lady.
Hello, hello, hello.
Long time no see.
I know. We've got to get together soon.
Yeah, we got to do a Christmas. Well, Christmas is a long ways away, but it'll be here before we know
Right?
it.
Again.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, so it's Friday night and I was bored, so I decided that I was going to watch the Fulton County Court hearing on Fani Willis in the Trump Rico case. And I invited my friend here, Diana Talk, to watch it with me. And then we can do some commentary because the little bits and pieces that I've seen of it are just like, what? They did what? They said what? Very spicy. And I love me some court drama. So I hear this one is going to be interesting. And I'm curious. The one thing that I did notice is that all of these people are attorneys. So it's attorneys questioning attorneys about bad behavior. Freaking hilarious. I think that there was only one witness that wasn't an attorney, but
So
I guess we'll find out.
let's watch
So
this.
did you get caught up on anything on this or no? You know what's going
Not
on?
really. So I'm watching it for the first time, and
I'm sorry, guys. I haven't eaten dinner all day. I've been on the road, so I might be snacking every once in a while. I'll try to keep it. I'll try to keep it
and I
down.
and I
Oh,
put my glasses on
oh,
so I could see a little better.
and I am drinking
Oh.
my vino, so this might get a little spicy or saucy. It might get a little saucy.
It
This is
might get a little
a wine.
saucy.
Mm-hmm. This is a wine that one of my clients gave me. It's a Bordeaux. Not my
Mm.
favorite vintage, but it's the only alcohol I have in the house, so it's gonna have to do.
It's gonna have to work on this Friday night.
It's gonna have to do just. I'm sure it'll do just fine once I
It'll
get.
do the trick.
Yeah, you know how it goes. Whenever you start drinking, if you just drink, drink a big, huge cup first, and then the rest of them are just smooth sailing.
Hmm. Just get the first one down.
Mm-hmm. All right, so
Well,
I went and found the YouTube video from the beginning. Like this is the first day, so there might be some spaces in between, and I'll fast forward as I go. But right from the get-go, I think they get kind of like combative. It's wild. It's wild. We'll watch. All right. So let me
okay.
go ahead and.
On behalf of Mr. Clark,
Harry McDougall, Your Honor, Mr. Clark waives.
Can you hear it over there on your end?
and
can
let me
hear
go
it.
back to Mr. Durham. Mr. Durham, does your client also waive his presence as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
With good volume or
Did
bad
I catch
volume?
that from Mr. Giuliani? Okay. All right.
I
On behalf
can
of Mr. Shealy.
understand.
Okay.
Richard Rice and Ms. President Milowitz and our client waives his arrest.
I wonder,
you.
does it look better like this? Nope.
On behalf of
does
Mr.
not look
Roman.
better.
Morning, Judge Ashley Merchant.
Does it look better like this?
Mr. Roman, and he waives.
Yes, I
Okay.
think.
Mr. Schaefer.
Morning, Your Honor. Craig Gillen and Anthony Lake for Mr. Schaefer. Mr. Schaefer is present in court today.
And Mr. Floyd.
Aaron McCullough on behalf of Mr. Floyd.
So what I understand is they're in
And then we also have Ms. Latham.
Morning, Your Honor. William Cromwell.
the court is basically doing the roll call at this point to see which attorneys are there, which clients are there.
And did we get that Mr. McCullough also as well for Mr. Floyd?
This is
Just making sure.
the
Okay, thank you.
state versus all of those
Oh, Mr.
people
Floyd is
in the
here.
Trump
Okay. I
Rico,
see Mr.
Rico
Floyd's
case that
present
are
as well.
still
All right.
that didn't do any plea bargains.
Sandy Monroe on behalf of the Fulton County District Attorney's Office.
All right.
Which that's what kind of confuses me. Like, why would you plea bargain? Why would you take a plea bargain if you didn't do anything?
Anyone else
Right.
present who believes they may need to be on the record or address any issue coming up? in the proceeding?
I didn't really understand
Seeing
that. So
none.
I don't know if I'm pretty sure that doesn't hurt. That doesn't help his case.
I've
I'm
been
pretty sure that
subpoenaed
hurts
as a
it.
witness, but I also represent Christopher Campbell. So.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Banks.
Bill Chopra for Terrence Bradley. We're under subpoena. Waiting in the hall.
Terrence
and sir, could we have you
Bradley
spell your name for the
is
record?
one of the witnesses.
Guy-M-A-L, last name C-H-O-P-R-A.
All right. In terms of just a little housekeeping in terms of presenting the evidence this morning, my thought was, as witnesses are called, this being Mr. Roman's motion, that counsel for Mr. Roman would be the first, and any witness that they call, then in order of the listed defendants, there would be the opportunity for additional direct or cross-examination, however you want to characterize it, and then the state on the tail end of that.
There's
So,
a really strong
with that,
reverb.
I would turn it over
On the
to Ms.
sound.
Merchant. Is there anything?
There's
that
a
we need to
strong
take up before
reverb?
calling the first witness.
Judge, we would invoke
Mhm.
the rule of sequestration.
All right.
On the court. On the
So to
court
that end,
sound.
pursuant to Rule 615, I would ask that any witnesses subpoenaed or expected to testify at the hearing today, that they should remain outside the courtroom until called. And they shouldn't discuss their testimony with
still
any
hear
other
it?
witness or watch any kind of live proceeding or recording of the
Lot
testimony
better.
until the evidence is
Okay.
is concluded or they're excused from.
I don't know why
being
I
called
can't
today.
hear the sound.
Are there any exceptions to this rule?
None from the state.
Any from the defense?
No, thank you, Judge.
Okay, Mr. Abadi.
Yes, Your Honor. Prior to starting any
Let me
testimony,
see.
the state would just like to address, I guess, some
You
housekeeping
can't hear
matters
the
issued
sound?
to the court as it relates to what was represented.
I can
during the
hear the sound
previous
because
hearing,
it's coming through my
as
speakers,
it
but for
relates
some reason
to,
it's not transmitting to
Witness
these speakers.
testimony,
I
specifically
can hear it.
the testimony of the
Maybe
former law partner of Nathan Wade, that would be Mr. Terrence Bradley, and what the state would like the court
Can you still hear
to
it?
understand and realize is that
Yes.
in preparation for this hearing, in speaking to witnesses, and doing the
okay.
additional research as
so-
relates to the comments that were represented
Mm.
by counsel, specifically counsel for Mr.
I
Roman,
might need to change the
Ms.
sound
Merchant,
on my computer.
that we've been able to
Go
determine
through
that
the
the claims
headphones.
that the defendant has asserted and did assert and during the last hearing on Monday are not only legally
go.
meritless, but are factually unsupported by the statements that Ms. Merchant made to the court. What I would say they're patently false.
So
They
that's the
are
spice right there, right after
egregious
that.
misrepresentations of what is believed that Mr. Bradley would say or even knows. What I would bring to the court's attention in my speaking with the defense counsel for Mr. Bradley, Mr. Chopra, is that any knowledge of anything he would have would be protected under the attorney-client privilege. He would assert that. And that privilege has not been waived by Mr. Wade. More importantly, the representation was made to the court that Ms. Merchant spoke to Mr. Bradley and that Mr. Bradley represented that he had firsthand knowledge from speaking to the several witnesses that he would be able to impeach with the statements she represented, that there was a relationship prior to Mr. Wade being appointed special prosecutor, and that there was issues with cohabitation that he would be able to directly impeach those witnesses.
Okay, so do you understand what's going on there? Bradley is one of the witnesses, and he's
Okay.
asserting that he has that he has privilege, attorney-client privilege with Wade, which is the special prosecutor, because a lot of the communication that they had was in reference to the divorce. He was his divorce attorney. And there was
I
a
gotcha.
communication between Bradley, which is the divorce attorney, and one of the defendant's attorneys, and that's how this kind of came out.
I gotcha.
Beside the wife, he kind of confirmed that they were having a relationship via some texts and some communication, and so they're trying to get that on the record. But he's now asserting that all of the information that he knows about their relationship is due to client privilege. And he got up there and basically made a motion to dismiss or to sanction her because she's fabricating all these lies and she didn't meet her burden and blah blah blah. So he's fighting up there to get it dismissed right off the bat without even having a hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So he basically like calls her a liar and unethical.
Well, if she fits.
Yeah,
I
know.
think
Like,
she is unethical. I think that this whole thing
no.
stems from.
He's the state, so he's fighting for the DA.
Oh, okay, okay.
He's saying
He's
that
fighting for the day.
the
Okay.
defendant's attorney is unethical, and
Oh, okay,
so it's the
okay,
other
okay,
way
okay.
around. In this
Gotcha.
instance, it that this is where I'm saying it's spicy. Like right off the bat, they start.
Mm-hmm. Slinging.
Yeah,
That is patently false. And speaking with Mr. Chopra, those are
patently
misrepresentations that
false
are not true.
misrepresentation.
They are for the purpose of harassment and undue burden to the district attorney. And we'd ask to renew our motion to quash. And the only hearing we should be having to the hearing as it relates to sanctions for the defense counsel's lack of candor that's required by not only statutory law, the professional rules of responsibility, and case law. And we ask that we move into a hearing that is related to the sanctions due to the misrepresentation and flagrant falsehoods that have been
Just call
spread
Fitch a
throughout
liar.
the world.
Just call her a
in an
liar.
effort to affect this case and to keep it from moving forward. With that, Your Honor, that's our request.
So just small matter of housekeeping.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Merchant.
Judge, first, the witnesses haven't been sequestered, so I just ask that they be sequestered before we argue this or have any more arguments. I
She
know
comes
Mr.
up
Wade is still
swinging.
here.
This is
So we
this
just ask
is
that he leaves since he is under subpoena. That
Let's start there. Mr.
I think
Body.
that's
Well, I
Trump's
agree
attorney.
when testimony starts that the rules of sequestration would require Mr. Wade to leave, but that we haven't started testimony. This is argument. He's lead counsel for the case and he has every right to be sitting at the table.
Okay, Ms. Merchant.
Let's hear from some witnesses, Judge. Let's actually hear some sworn testimony under oath. I have made proffers and it just seems like all we're going to get is objection after objection because the state clearly does not want any witnesses to take the stand, doesn't want the truth to come out in front of this court. This is a very important issue and we need to have witnesses. I have a good faith basis. We will learn I have a good faith basis. And Mr. Bradley is not my only witness to this good faith basis. It is just happens to be the evidence I proffered at the hearing when the state first tried to keep all of the other witnesses off the stand. I was forced to proffer certain testimony to get over the hurdle to refute their motions to quash. I did that. I used Mr. Bradley's testimony to do that. He is not the only witness that can state there was a relationship prior to Mr. Wade being hired. The first witness that I'd like to call is Robin Yurdy, not Mr. Bradley, no privilege issues. Let's start with her.
Y'all,
Hello. Well, I'll have to continue this show.
Sorry.
That's okay. I wondered what happened to you.
I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I hit the wrong button. So let me share it back up. All right, can you hear it?
Sure, understood.
Yes.
So
The state clearly does not want any witnesses to take the stand, doesn't want the truth to come out in front of this court. This is a very important
I was just
issue,
trying to mute it.
and we need to have witnesses. I have a good faith basis. We will learn I have a good faith basis. And Mr. Bradley is not my only witness to this good faith basis. It is just happens to be the evidence I proffered at the hearing when the state first tried to keep all of the other witnesses off the stand. I was forced to proffer certain testimony to get over the hurdle to refute their motions to quash. I did that. I used Mr. Bradley's testimony to do that. He is not the only witness that can state there was a relationship prior to Mr. Wade being hired. The first witness that I'd like to call is Robin Yurdy, not Mr. Bradley, no privilege issues.
That's what I was trying to do. Okay, so Miss Yurdy, that is the lady, that is her roommate when she moved out of her house, because apparently there was some harassment that happened as soon as she decided that she was going to try this case, which was horrible. I can't lie on that, but there was some harassment that was going on. So she had to move out of her house and moved in with this lady and was kind of like hopping bet, or I don't know if she said that, I think that she said that she was subleasing it from her, but this lady is the one that had the most information as far as like their relationship and when it started. All right, so we'll just keep going.
Okay.
When we have additional argument or matter to be brought up, do we want to do it like I just stand up and with relation to what's just been said by Mr. Abate, or are you only hearing from this merchant at this point? I just need to know the court's protocol.
Sure. So I think at this point, we just need to take these issues one at a time. And as you've joined the motion, I think defense counsel would have the opportunity to weigh in. But again, at any point, if I'm just hearing the same thing over and over again from each separate defense counsel, I'm going to reserve the right to say, thank you.
I appreciate that.
All right.
I only asked for the opportunity to be heard on the invocation of the attorney-client privilege and the burden being on the individual raising the privilege to prove that a privilege in fact was in existence before we get to simply look at the claim. That's what I asked the question.
Sure. Understood. So, Ms. Merchant, I do want to put it back to you, though. The issue raised by the state this morning is that essentially, as I would summarize it, the good faith basis that you did put forward on Monday did not exist, right? So why wouldn't we start with Mr. Bradley and see where we go from there?
The good faith basis does exist. So you basically have them saying it's not true and me saying it's not true. So they think they have a good faith basis. I think I have a good faith basis. I have a huge good faith basis for everything that I put in every single motion. That's going to come out. The reason I don't want to call Mr. Bradley first is for hearsay objections, quite frankly. And normally we don't have to disclose how we're going to present evidence. I'm okay doing that here, but based on the rules of evidence, hearsay, and privilege issues, what makes the most sense, and we've spent a lot of time thinking about this, which makes the most sense is for us to have Ms. Yurdy testify. And if you want me to proffer what I anticipate she's going to say, I talked to her last night. She's going to say that there was a personal relationship that began in October of 2019. She's going to testify to that. And she has personal direct knowledge of that. It's not hearsay and it's not privilege. She's going to take the stand. She's terrified, but she's going to take the stand and tell the truth. And then I plan on calling Mr. Wade, because at that point I can overcome their motion to quash and bring Mr. Wade, bring him to come. Then I can go through privilege issues with him, and then I can have Mr. Bradley testify. And we won't have to have an objection to every single question I ask Mr. Bradley, an objection to hearsay, an objection to privilege. So that's how I plan on presenting the evidence, because it makes the most sense. And I think I'll be able to overcome any privilege objections. But we can talk about that when Mr. Wade takes a stand.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Mr. Abate, any last words on starting with Ms. Yurdy and going from there, taking it a witness at a time?
Love it when he says any last word.
I guess my final response would be that, as Your Honor pointed out during the last hearing, Ms. Merchant's entire representation for good faith was all solely based on Mr. Bradley. In fact, I remember the court saying that the star witness presented or provided by the defense is Mr. Bradley, and you asked a specific question, Ms. Merchant, well, Mr. Bradley, does he have firsthand knowledge from these people, each one of them, you named the lawyers plus the investigators, as it relates to the claims that were made? And her answer was yes. I can definitively tell you the answer is no. And Ms. Merchant has not spoken to Mr. Bradley, according to his counsel, B.C. Chopra, who is outside and can represent to the court the things that I've represented. And he has maintained and represented that everything that she plans to go into or ask is protected by attorney-client privilege. And the only point of this process and this procedure, as it relates to the motions that were filed, is to create a spectacle and to create harassment to the district attorney of Fulton County.
I can't hear you if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Hmm.
So basically, what he's saying is she has nothing. Judge, she has nothing. Believe me, she has nothing. Take my word for it. She has nothing. You don't need to hear any from anybody. These are not the droids that you're looking for.
The witnesses. These are not the witnesses.
These are not the witnesses that you're looking for. We don't need to have this this motion heard. Let's just move on. Judge is probably going to say something like, well, he said, she said, so let's listen to the witnesses.
And we request that the only hearing we move forward is sanctions for counsel's lack of duty of candor to the court and to counsel.
All right. Well, I think you
She
certainly
has
put her on
nothing.
notice if that is actually the case. But at this point, I have someone saying yes, and I have another person saying no. And so I think that conflict in the evidence that we noted on Monday still exists, and that's where we are. And we'll see what
Conflict
how
of the evidence.
presents itself. So with that, Ms. Merchant, are you ready to call your first witness? All right.
We called Ms. Yurdy, and I know Mr. Partridge had emailed before, and I quite frankly couldn't keep up, about a Zoom, so I don't know if she's on Zoom or if she's under subpoena to be here at 9:30. She may be on Zoom, I'm not really sure.
Ms. Partridge, or sorry, Mr. Partridge was joining us by Zoom, but Ms. Yurdy is here in person, right?
Mr. Partridge, I believe, represented that his client would be more comfortable if he were here in person, and that, due to his conflict in Richmond County this morning, couldn't occur until this afternoon. I think that is a reasonable request, but not the state's business. The witness is here. If her attorney is able to join right now, perhaps that can be something that is addressed with Mr. Partridge in the court. But I want to alert the court that that was the representation that the witness would prefer not to go forward without her client present, and that's certainly a reasonable request.
Sure. I think the latest I'd seen, though, that Mr. Partridge was going to be able to join by Zoom.
Great.
I didn't know that he had that Mr. Partridge had affirmed that, but perhaps that was an email this morning that I missed.
Yeah, I don't know either. But the state seems to know that Ms. Yurdy is here, so I guess she's not appearing by Zoom.
Is Mr. Partridge here?
We'll find out. Say what? Thinking, is someone getting Mr. Bradley in?
Yes. If we don't hear, and I don't want to have the sheriff take anybody up or anything like that, but if we don't hear from Mr. Partridge within an hour or so, we may need to. Ms. Yurdy.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thinking, is someone getting Mr. Bradley in?
Yes, I believe so. Oh, the sheriff's didn't go. Okay, sorry. Normally, I'm sorry. Are the sheriffs, when I call a witness, will the sheriffs not sound for them?
I don't know if they're going to know where they are. So I think it'd be best if maybe someone from your team, and they're not going to know what they look like either.
Not a problem. at
Sure.
all. He's outside. Yeah.
This doesn't really feel like normal court. You know, like
No, it
the way
doesn't.
that they're talking to each other is so. Mm.
He's coming, Judge.
I've been curious to go to an actual courtroom. Well, I mean, I've been to court. I used to work for CASA, so I used to go to those court cases all the time. And it is a little bit less formal, but this is like the most famous man in the world. These are attorneys that are trying to try the most famous man in the world, and this is how it works.
The most famous case that will set precedents in the future.
And I think it's the only one of Trump's that's actually going to be televised. All the other ones have been behind closed doors without any video. So this is
Right.
the only one that's going to be live all over the globe.
And
And
it will
that's
be
kind of,
criticized and
I don't know, ad nauseum.
dissected. Huh?
Mhm.
Yes. Ad
By
nauseam.
everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Let me fast forward it again. Because I don't know how long.
It could be made. It could be.
I think we're getting close to.
Excuse me.
You were,
Let me see if I can get.
I do.
Okay, they just swore him in.
Now this is
Terrence Bradley, Terrence Bradley, Bradley.
Your Honor, as Mr. Wade's counsel, before we start, we would request the chambers to vote about certified privilege before we.
Why does that need to be in camera?
Doesn't necessarily, well, there's statements that could be made. It could be prejudicial, depending on whether they were covered or not, whether he's gonna break the.
So at the time a question is asked that you think implicates some of those statements, object, and we'll handle it.
Thank
Ms.
you,
Merchant.
Judge. Thank-
On behalf of Mr. Bradley, and I apologize, this is not our proceeding, but it might be helpful to have a brief sidebar as opposed to something in chambers, at least so that we could let the court know our position rather than having to restate it repeatedly.
And Judge, I've carefully crafted my questions to avoid any privileged information. But if they think that I'm invading that, then I welcome an objection and I'm happy to address it.
Let's see how it goes. And again, Mr. Bradley, I'll ask if you can just give a pause in between each question to allow counsel the opportunity to object before answering.
He's the
Thank you, Judge.
partner.
Was the witness sworn or do I need to swear the witness?
I believe he
That was
was.
also
Great, thank you. I'm sorry.
his
Good
divorce
morning, Mr. Bradley.
attorney.
How are you?
Good morning.
Not happy to be here, I'm assuming.
I am not,
I understand. Thank you for being here.
wasn't by choice.
Right.
He's under
You
subpoena.
were subpoenaed to come and testify in this case.
I was.
Mhm.
But you and I have spoken previously about relevant facts surrounding Mr. Wade and Ms. Willis's relationship.
No, we have not.
We have not. We've not texted about those facts.
Through a third party, you were given some information. You and I shared text. Our text were more so about my health, more so about
Mm-mm.
if I was okay with what was going on,
You're about to get impeached, dude.
that I would not be, whether or not I was going to be subpoenaed or not, and that emphatically I would not have been sitting in this position as being called as a witness. So that's what my text chain show. So no.
That we've never talked about Willis and Wade having a relationship.
Not directly you and I, no. We talked about my health.
Okay.
We talked about,
She wouldn't be asking the question
as I
if she didn't
stated
have
before,
evidence.
other things, but not this, no.
Right.
Did you text me about
Here we go.
Wade and Willis taking many trips together?
No, I'm gonna.
I object, well,
Mr. Bradley,
so-
there's been an objection.
I object.
Attorney-client privilege. Two, I'm going to object because I haven't seen the text message that she's attempting to impeach the witness with. And two, he's made all of his representations is that he's had zero communications as it relates to the issues.
Yeah, so let's
that,
just believe him. Oh my
Ms.
God,
Merchant
sit
continues
down.
to ask about, and that the only information that she has from him is through a third party, which would be hearsay.
Ms. Merchant?
Judge, it's not hearsay. We've had these conversations. If I need to take the stand, I will. If I need to put my phone into evidence, I will.
So the first objection was to privilege on behalf of the state.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not respond to that.
Sure.
Thank you, Judge. Privilege is only communications that are made in furtherance of legal advice. There's been no showing that whether or not they took a trip to California or took a trip, or that Mr. Bradley and I talked about that, either in person or by text, that's privileged. I'm not asking for any communications that Mr. Wade might have made to Mr. Bradley in furtherance of any legal advice.
All right. And Mr. Abadi, I believe as the one asserting privilege, it would be your burden to show the necessary foundation there. Is that something you want to voir dire the witness on or take up here on this specific question?
You want to
No,
voir
I don't
dire?
subject to foundation grounds. She has not provided any foundation that he would have any knowledge of what she's requesting he answer. His answers were he had no knowledge. And now she hasn't laid the foundation in order to continue to ask the same question over and over.
Ms. Merchant?
And from behalf of Mr. Bradley, we do object. This falls under the privileges afforded under 1.6 of the rules. And the attorney-client privilege is not something that Mr. Bradley can waive. Only Mr. Wade can waive it, regardless of any information or communications being proffered by the claimant. Mr. Wade would have to waive them for Mr. Bradley to continue to testify.
I need
about any of
more
this
one.
relationship until it's been established when that privilege should have begun.
Sure. And so far, though, I haven't heard anything about a relationship, about an attorney-client relationship, about a privilege ever attaching. And I think that's going to need to be established before we can actually determine the scope of it and whether this falls inside or out of it. So I think either Ms. Merchant can take the lead if she wants to, but my understanding was that generally has to fall on the person who's asserting the privilege.
Boom.
Except for the attorney is not authorized to violate
Sorry.
that privilege, or else he has in fact violated the bar rules, which we have an opinion regarding from someone in the State Bar of Georgia.
All right.
That's why I thought perhaps the sidebar might be important rather than my interjecting.
Well, I still want to kind of see how we can go. So, Ms. Merchant, it sounds like you're going to need to lay a little bit more foundation to see whether this actually is going to fall under privilege or not.
That's not a problem, Judge. And what I can do, I was just told that Ms. Yerdy's in the waiting room. But I can, if the state wants to read my text, if Mr. Bradley wants to read them to refresh his memory, I have absolutely no problem with that. I have my phone here and they're welcome to do that. But I'll talk about some other things. And then maybe if they're going to have a lot of objections to privilege and hearsay, what I can do is I can lay a foundation with Mr. Bradley, get him off the stand, put Ms. Yerdy up, and then Mr. Wade, so we can get through the privilege issues. That might make the most sense. Thank you. All right. Let's talk about something not controversial then. When did you and Mr. Wade first meet?
Boom.
Probably 1998.
Okay.
I love how
And
she works.
did you all have a law firm together?
We did.
When did that firm start?
Probably, I think it was 2010. We started exclusively working together as a firm, operating as a firm.
Okay. And were you all actually incorporated as a firm?
Not initially, no. He had, when I passed the bar and I hung the shingle in 07, I think he had been practicing a few years prior to that. He had his own firm. We had two separate firms.
Okay. At some point, did you all incorporate though together?
We did.
Okay. Do you remember about when that was?
Betty's regretting that now.
I do not at this particular moment, no, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Okay. Do you remember if it was administratively dissolved?
I've been made aware that it's been administratively dissolved. Yes, I left the firm around 2 years ago.
When did you leave the firm?
August of 2022, I think it was.
August of 2022. Okay.
Or it was either August or September of 2022.
Okay. August, September. Let me make a note. So in October 2019, were you all incorporated as a firm?
I think we were, maybe.
Okay.
Yes.
And when Mr. Wade filed for divorce November 1st or 2nd, 2021, were you all incorporated as a firm?
We should have been. I'm thinking that we were. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When did Mr. Wade come to you to file the divorce action in Cobb County?
Your Honor, that's privileged information.
No,
The timing and the beginning of the privilege, I don't believe that is overruled.
So
I know better.
the timing was around
I ain't even
2018.
Okay.
And it was probably December of 2018. I remember it specifically because I was building a house. And I noticed that he wasn't wearing his ring. I asked him about it. I had invited him to the house because I was having not a housewarming, but people over. And he wasn't wearing his ring. I inquired about it. From there, we discussed what would happen. And we discussed the divorce and what would happen.
What would happen with the divorce?
What would happen over me representing him for the divorce and when he would want to do it. Yes.
When did he retain you?
Well,
Did he sign a contract?
my memory would
Probably
be
not.
2018
Okay.
when he consulted with me about the divorce and told me what he would like to see done and when he wanted to do it.
Do you know when Fani Willis and Nathan Wade met?
Specific dates, no. I know it was sometime at a conference.
Municipal court conference?
Correct.
And October 2019, if it's been represented in the state's pleadings before that's when they met, does that sound familiar?
If that's what they're saying, then absolutely. I know it was at a conference in 2000. I mean, it was at a conference. If you say it's 2019, I'll take you at your word.
Okay. So it was what you're sure of though, is it was at a municipal courts judges conference
Yes.
when they were both municipal court judges.
Yes.
So it's fair to say, since she became the district attorney, she was no longer a municipal court judge. So it had to have been before that.
That they met?
Yes.
Yes.
And he was teaching a class at that seminar, as far as you know.
I'm going to object as to leading at this point. She has it on direct.
Was he teaching a class at this seminar?
To my knowledge, he was.
And was Miss Willis, to your knowledge, attending this seminar?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. He has no personal knowledge. He wasn't present at the municipal court's training.
They put it in their pleadings. Like, we are going to be here all day.
We are going to be here all day.
All right. If you can establish that he would have some personal knowledge, then that's a fair question. So if you just need to preface it with that, then that's fine.
Thank you. Are you aware of when their romantic relationship began?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. That relates to privilege. She says that he began representing Mr. Wade in 2018. He met Miss Willis in 2019. That's
You can
clearly
still
within
answer
the
the
bounds of
question.
attorney-client privilege.
I think there's
Know that.
understood, Mr. Vadi. So I think Ms. Merchant, you need to qualify.
I mean, basically, she asked him, "Are you aware of when the relationship began?" He can say yes, but he doesn't have to say when. Anyway, that's my thought.
That.
Because I mean, there's nothing in the rules that says that you cannot answer the question. You just can't give specifics because it would fall under client privilege, right? Or am I wrong about you can't even answer the question, you can't entertain the question, you can't even verbalize the question? I mean, I guess I don't know what the level is on the client privilege. Like
Right. I mean, I think any information.
He hasn't even asserted the client privilege other than through an attorney at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I guess we can keep watching. She probably needs to tone down the attitude just a tad because she's getting she's going to keep getting schwacked if she doesn't cool it a little bit, I think. I don't know.
I think she's pretty sharp.
She
But
is
I
sharp,
think-
but she's
I
gonna piss
think
the
the-
judge off if she doesn't dial back the toot a little bit.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I mean, it's one thing to start doing the eye rolling thing. I don't know. This judge is very rule oriented and he likes everything very clean and precise. So I
Mhm.
don't know that he would react to her eye rolling and the stuff that
Right.
she's been doing so well. To her, I bet you anything to him is just more is just for dramatic effect, not necessarily.
Question.
Thank you. I'm not asking you to tell me what Nathan Wade told you in furtherance of legal advice. Okay, so I want to be very clear. If he told you something asking you legal advice, I'm not asking you about that. I'm asking about what you observed, what you saw, and what you knew outside of what he told you when he was specifically seeking legal advice. Okay.
This is too far afield. I apologize. I object again. Mr. Bradley, he's asserting that there was an attorney-client privilege associated with this case. Under Rule
He's not
1.6,
asserting it.
For him to draw any inference, make any
You
statements or any other proffer of information after this relationship began between attorney and client in December of 2018 would be improper, and he would in fact be violating the rules of ethics associated with our license.
So the way the question was phrased was just saying, what did he personally observe outside of the relationship, not involving communications? How does that fall within attorney-client privilege?
Or whether we like it or not, when we have a client, there are a number of items associated with that relationship between the attorney and client that come within your purview and that lead you to further action, lead you to further investigation, further questions, develops your strategy. We can't talk about Mr. Wade on any level. It would be inappropriate. The divorce was filed sometime thereafter. During that entire interlude, any of these issues could in fact have formed the basis for their relationship to remain privileged.
Ms. Merchant?
Judge, his observations are not privileged. That's not what the privilege law says. And I can read you the attorney-client privilege attaches where, and this is the law, this is the rule. There's an attorney-client relationship. The communications in question relate to the matters on which legal advice was sought. And the communications have been maintained in confidence, and there's no exceptions to the privilege. First,
I want to bone the
number two, the
DA.
second prong. This was not in furtherance
do
of
you
legal
think?
advice. That's not in furtherance of legal advice. What he witnesses as a human being is not in furtherance of legal advice. Unless, I mean, and if he witnesses them together, it would get rid of the attorney-client privilege because Ms. Willis is there. Additionally, though, exceptions. We can go all day about exceptions to this. Fraud to the court, that's an exception. Mr. Wade, we contend, has filed a false affidavit with this court. That is fraud to the court. If this witness has direct knowledge that that is not true, then that's an exception to attorney-client privilege.
That's another one. If he knew that they were filing a fraudulent affidavit.
Ms. Merchant, if you could re-ask that question again, qualifying it as, if it's, I think you qualified it as anything that outside of anything he learned or was told as a result of his representation. It was just any observations he made, which in my mind, as you phrased the question, would have included before December 2018 when this first consultation occurred. I think if you can go step by step, we can handle this.
And Judge, I would just ask permission. We gave the state notice under 611 that all of these witnesses do not want to be here. They are adverse witnesses.
I understand.
Yes, so I'd like to have leeway to be able to cross them. Thank you, Judge. All right, Mr. Bradley.
Yes, ma'am.
Wants to treat them as hostile witnesses.
You have knowledge that their relationship began in 2019.
I do not have knowledge, but again, I have consulted with the bar as late as yesterday at 4 o'clock. I am not here to.
Your testimony is that you do not have independent knowledge.
I cannot. I was advised by the bar that Rule 1.6 of confidentiality applies, and that I cannot reveal anything that I saw or learned. And that if the court is asking me to do that, that an immediate certificate of review should be asked. And so I'm not here to misrepresent to the court or to say anything inappropriate or
No, that's not accurate.
or anything, I am here because I also have a law license. And I'm not trying to lose that.
And so, Mr. Bradley, can you finish that thought? Is saw or learned just period without qualification whatsoever?
Judge, I'm going to refer to what I was told by the bar, that Rule 1.6 of confidentiality applies, and that I would be asking for an immediate review by the Supreme Court.
Sure, but applies to what?
Any communications is what the person at the bar told us.
Not
Any
observation.
communications? So like
He did
Subpoena
not
him.
if you
qualify.
talk to Mr. Wade, that's covered.
Well, Judge, I don't know. He didn't go into those specifics. But this is what
He's not
was
applying
told.
client privilege, right?
I was sitting there
And
with my attorneys,
it's not a blank.
and this was
you
what
know.
was told to us. To state that Rule 1.6 applies.
I mean, it's basically saying that, oh, because he hired me as his attorney, I can't tell you anything about this guy. Nothing. Before or after, blah, nothing. That's not true. That's
Okay, well, is it the same as if you start to communicate, you know, and they basically, if you start to communicate, then you open yourself up for all communication. It's almost like testifying against yourself.
if he has an interest that is adverse to whatever it is that he's testifying for, then maybe. But basically, I could give my attorney $1 and tell him, hey, anything I tell you, anything that you see me do, I can murder somebody in your presence. You can't say shit. That's basically what he's saying. Is that anything that you saw me do after I hired you as my divorce attorney, anything that you saw me say,
But that
anything
isn't
that
correct.
that's basically what he just said, is that anything that he saw, witnessed, blah, 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 that it would be covered under client privilege and I could risk losing my license. And so I prefer not to answer. It's just bullshit. It's just bullshit. You gotta call bullshit on bullshit, and this is bullshit.
Bullshit. He's hiding behind the apron.
And we gave them the scenario, and this is what they told us to do. And this is what I'm doing at this particular point.
Judge, and we have no knowledge if the bar was aware of the affidavit that Mr. Wade filed, but that significantly changes the privilege. He waived the privilege when he put that in the affidavit, so that's one of the reasons I wanted to call him. That's a waiver. He put the relationship in the when the relationship started, and put the relationship in his affidavit. He put a lot of information in that affidavit that would waive certain amounts of privilege. So
That's exactly what I was saying.
So basically what we've got Mr. Wade being able to say what he wants about this relationship, but then we're not allowed to ask questions to qualify that. So that's not how it works. They either get to admit it or they don't. It's either privileged or it's not.
We're just talking about a relationship, though. How does that open the floodgates to anything he's ever told an attorney during representation?
It doesn't, and I'm not asking him that. I'm asking for his knowledge. They were law partners, and as I go through the questions, I think he has knowledge of things that is not something that Mr. Wade specifically told him. I also think there's a fraud exception to a lot of this.
And
Even if there was a privilege, but I don't think there was
with
for most of it.
legal
But
advice.
he's already represented that he has no knowledge.
I don't think we've actually gotten anything to that extent yet. I think we're still making our way through it, which is, I think he's taking the position that he's not willing to share anything Mr. Wade ever told him, period.
That's not covered under privilege.
But he already did.
Broader representation of attorney-client privilege than I've ever heard.
But he already did.
I think that's what we're trying to parse out, is if the relationship starts, I've never heard anything that said everything before that point is privileged. Do you have something that I should know? Yes, sir. That's fine.
These questions aren't being established. It was 2018, December. The last question was directly related to a point in time after that, during which the relationship attorney and client would have been already established. He has an opinion from the State Bar of Georgia that he's going to be
So basically in 2018, he was this guy's attorney.
On any of
And
these issues.
from
Judge,
2018
I
to
understand
the
how
present
delicate
or
this is.
whatever.
You can phrase it in 1,000 different ways to try to make him say something, but you can't unring a bell that he puts out into the universe where he has violated that privilege. We're going to get to go back 6 months from now and say, oh, well, we shouldn't have said that. It's not acceptable.
He doesn't get to
It
assert that
violates
privilege.
hundreds of thousands of relationships in this state that we rely on in order for the justice system to function. This is an attorney-client privilege issue. We've done all the diligence we can as far as looking up the relevant laws, the relevant information. We do not have a waiver from the client. The client is present, whatever.
There's no question of
He's just saying
why
a
we're
lot
not
of words.
barreling ahead is because I recognize the privilege. What we have to determine is actually what that privilege, the scope of it, and when it started. And I don't think we've even gotten close to that yet.
So I thought December 2018, Mr. Bradley testified directly that is when the retainer and the divorce proceedings were beginning. The issues being brought up by the state have to do potentially, if I've been.
So we have a starting point, but does that necessarily foreclose anything from that point onward? If they started talking about something
Murder.
else entirely.
Divorce, of course not.
Murder.
But during the pendency, it would absolutely curtail that, especially as it has to do with observations, attendance at functions together, or other realizations that Mr. Bradley came into during the pendency of his representation. And to parse it out would put Mr. Bradley in an untenable position because his reputation means everything.
Okay, Mr. Sada.
Your Honor, I think we're talking about two aspects of arguably the attorney-client.
I'm gonna grab my.
There's the attorney-client
Snap.
privilege, which is controlled by case law and statute, which deals with communications and burdens.
I think they
I don't
beat
hear
this
that
dead
being
horse pretty
The
hard.
objection is that there are confidential matters under 1.6, which in some form or fashion mean that once you start a relationship with attorney-client, that everything from that point on is confidential between the two of them.
No,
There's no such case law in Georgia that deals with confidential information of that kind. Attorney-client, yes. Confidential information, no. And
no,
I
the
believe what's
statute
being
says
argued by
as it
counsel for Mr. Bradley
pertains
is that
to
he has
legal
received,
advice.
of course, we don't have anything in writing, but he's received some oral advice that under 1.6, confidential matters
Dr.
cannot
Pepper.
be gone into, which is, according to them,
You
everything
know.
that occurs between Mr. Bradley and Mr. Wade from 2018 forward. There's no such law that protects such confidences, only communications made in furtherance. And if I'm mistaken, I apologize.
Exactly.
But I think what we're being told is, I don't have to say
Oops.
anything at all about Mr. Wade once I have an attorney-client relationship with him, because it would be deemed confidential. And if it's deemed confidential, I can't talk about it. And there's no such case law to that effect in Georgia. There is no bar rule to that effect. The only thing the court has to do is say, are we talking about attorney-client privilege or pure confidences or confidential information?
Or
And once you
social
decide it's confidential
interactions.
information, you ordered Mr. Bradley to testify.
So are you saying that
And then it's
every
up to his
social
counsel to decide
interaction?
whether he wants to have his client held in contempt after you've ordered him to testify.
And Judge,
I mean, it's almost like saying, okay, so I can see this guy murdering somebody and I can't say anything because we had client privilege. I can't,
That's exactly what he's saying.
but right. Any communication, any meeting that we might have had from here until eternity
Mhm.
is protected under client privilege. And it doesn't work like that. There's no case law. There's no, I mean, that's just in the movies or whatever, you know, like anything that you say to your attorney as it pertains to legal advice,
Mhm.
not if you're in a social setting and you see somebody macking on somebody else in the corner. That's not protected under client privilege. I'm sorry. Stupid.
That's what he's claiming, though.
That's an overstatement. We have not said that he can't testify to anything. The specific question on the table is, what observations do you have between Mr. Wade and Miss Willis from that point on. Now, they, the defense and their teams, have made an allegation of some impropriety. That same impropriety could be related to a divorce proceeding on every level. We're not here to say we're not talking. We're here to say we're not talking about things that came into his knowledge associated with his representation during the divorce. I realize there's an evidentiary standard, and then I realize that there's the cornerstone.
I should have
of what we
popped some
do, which is the
popcorn.
bar rules, the state bar rule 1.6. You violate that, and the whole thing comes tumbling down. We're not saying that you can't ask about, did Mr. Wade enjoy a beer at a ball game? That wasn't the question. The question was specifically relating to some impropriety that they are trying to dig into. That is privileged information.
And more importantly, Mr. Bradley has said twice now that he has no independent knowledge as it relates to what she's referencing. He has said it 2 times. So there's not a good faith basis for her to continue to probe into this area because he said he has no independent knowledge outside of the attorney-client privilege.
All right, Ms. Merchant, last word.
Yes, Judge. Judge, Mr. Bradley, if ordered, he's hereby subpoena. If ordered to testify, it's not a issue with the bar. My question was not about attorney-client privilege. I'm being very careful not to ask anything that Mr. Wade asked in furtherance, but I've been informed that Robin Yerdy is on the Zoom. And so if we want to start back on our original plan, we can call Miss Yerdy and have her testify and then put Mr. Wade up and we can go through the privilege issue with him. And then we won't have to have all these objections, or else I'm happy to continue questioning Mr. Bradley.
All right, so Ms. Merchant, you're saying that your understanding of the evidence that you plan to present, that these issues are affected by Ms. Yerdy in terms of the scope of the privilege and the relationship?
No, I think, thank you for letting me clarify that. I think that Miss Yerdy is going to give me enough to get Mr. Wade on the stand. Once I get Mr. Wade on the stand, because they filed a motion to quash, and you said I had to present something before I could put Mr. Wade on the stand. So once I present Miss Yerdy, I can put Mr. Wade up on the stand, and then I can put him up before I call Mr. Bradley. And then I may not even have to call Mr. Bradley at that point.
All right.
All right.
She laid it out.
I'm on
Speaking.
Zoom, Your Honor. Attorney Durante Partridge, Judge, on behalf of Ms. Yerdy. Your Honor, when we were here for the motion to quash earlier this week, it's my understanding, as represented by defense counsel, that Mr. Bradley's
Another attorney.
testimony is, so to speak, the bridge that was built to involve my client, Ms. Yerdy, into this matter altogether. Now it seems as though that is being usurped, and now she is being the quote unquote foundation for defense counsel's presentation this morning. So we do object to that, Judge, and would renew our motion to quash the subpoena, because this is completely contradictory to what we had via the hearing earlier this week, Your Honor.
Judge, may I
It's okay,
respond?
Ms. Merchant.
Okay.
Mr. Partridge, as I recall, that did not apply to your client as much. The original motion to quash that you filed said she had absolutely no knowledge about anything. What Ms. Merchant proffered, and what I didn't hear you saying was not the case, is that at some point Ms. Yerdy lived in a residence and shared a residence with Ms. Willis and potentially Mr. Wade at some point. So I think she's directly involved in the center of this. I don't think that really needs much in the way of foundation.
And Judge, I apologize, Your Honor.
Well, he's
talk to the
he's
court.
logical.
That information, however, Your Honor, is my understanding, came from Mr. Bradley, and that information was incorrect, as I informed the court earlier this week as well. There was never any time that Ms. Yerdy and Ms. Willis
Have you ever seen a
lived
court
together.
case that has
There
so
was a
many goddamn
sublet
attorneys?
of a condo that Ms. Willis resided in that had absolutely
No,
nothing
but
to do
he
with
just said something.
It too.
He said that Bradley said something to him.
There's hearsay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I have never seen a
What
court
happened to-
case that had so many attorneys fighting to get their witnesses to not testify. Like,
Right.
if they were under subpoena, they need to get on the fucking chair. I just, it's almost like I can understand why she's so spicy. Like, she's so pissed off at this point because she issued a subpoena and now you got all these attorneys fighting saying that their clients can't testify because they have no knowledge. Bitch, it ain't your fucking job to do that. They need to testify and say that, not, oh no, Mr.
Exactly.
Judge, they don't know nothing. So don't
Exactly.
call my client.
Well, they don't want their clients to be called because their clients have information that could actually
I've just never seen
work.
anything like this where every
Well,
single witness has their own private
Mm.
consultation with an attorney, and their
Mhm.
attorney inserts themselves into this case and sticks their little fingers in there and says, this is a motion to quash. This is a blah,
Mhm.
blah, blah. This is
Right.
client privilege, or, oh, client, Judge, Your Honor, my client doesn't have any information. Not your job to say that.
Right.
People
But they
be
don't want their
crazy.
client to get up on the stand because it actually could help the case to dismiss.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if it doesn't help the case, I mean, maybe they get on the stand and they say that they were just wanting to cause trouble or whatever. Once a witness gets on the stand and they start realizing the scope of what's going to happen once they swear an oath, sometimes they don't lie, or sometimes they get impeached, or you just never know. It's so ridiculous that these attorneys are.
But
It's
these
all a
attorneys don't
spectacle.
want to. These attorneys don't want to be the attorney that had the
Yeah,
witness.
they just want their 15 seconds of fame.
Well, and there's that, right?
Because there's everybody in the whole
It's
entire universe
twofold.
going to be seeing their face.
Right.
And then they're going to be able to say, I represented blah, blah, blah.
Correct. That is
Ms.
correct.
Willis. Ms. Yardy actually
Drawing-
moved into a different residence. Per our conversation with Ms. Merchant yesterday, that is exactly what it is. So there was no overlapping or any time that they stayed together, nor does Ms. Yardy have any information as it relates to Mr. Wade staying at that condo as well with that of Ms. Willis.
You're not
So
testifying for
again,
her.
Judge, I'm renewing.
Okay, no, we don't need to hear it again. Ms. Merchant.
Judge, luckily, I don't have to tell the state
Yeah,
or
we don't need to hear
them
it again.
everything that I plan on introducing a witness for in response to their motion to quash. She has a lot of personal knowledge.
She has a subpoena.
When we had a motion to quash, I had to get over a good faith basis, and I presented that to the court.
That is
I
correct.
did not spend 4 hours going through everything that this woman's going to testify to.
Uh,
She has personal
This
knowledge.
woman.
Is she actually here?
I think she's on Zoom. It's what I understand, Mr. Partridge.
Mr.
put her on
Partridge, is
Zoom.
your client with us?
She's on the Zoom platform, Your Honor, since I'm in Richmond County on via my conflict, but she is on the Zoom platform at this time, Your Honor, in the waiting room. I believe she may have been admitted. I see a Robin on my screen. I'm assuming that is my client. Ms.
All right,
Yardy.
and Ms. Merchant, you want to examine her by Zoom?
That's fine.
All right,
We will waive
Mr.
any
Abadi.
Sixth Amendment objections to
Sure.
it. That's fine.
My only objection was the representation at Monday's hearing was the good faith basis was based on what
Look at her
she
face.
learned from Terrence Bradley. And we know that is false. It's not true. So there is no good faith basis.
We
and
know
would
what?
Renew our objection and to quash the subpoena.
That was
We know
not
nothing.
in regards to Miss Yurdy.
It certainly was. It was at like the 20-minute mark.
Look at her
Hearing.
face.
Judge, she has personal knowledge of this relationship.
It's not what was represented on Monday. Personal knowledge came from Mr. Bradley. She has no good faith basis to explore this fishing expedition as it relates to Miss Yuri.
Let's
She does.
hear from her.
All right, Mr. Abadi. Ms. Merchant, I do believe that when we went through the motion to quash, you grouped them into two categories, and each one of them we said that they were going to be impeached by Mr. Bradley.
We took Miss Yurdy outside of Fulton County, Judge. So we talked about Fulton County differently than Miss Yurdy. You took Miss Yurdy out separately. She was different than Fulton County because there wasn't other issues. And again, so we're arguing the motion to quash. I responded to their argument on the motion to quash. Did I tell them that she's going to testify that she's known Miss Willis for years and that her middle name is Latrice? No, I didn't tell them everything she's going to testify to. I don't if you wanted me to, I could have, but that has nothing to do. There is a witness that contradicts what they have said in court. And they're doing everything they can to keep her off the stand and keep the truth away from this court. They filed a motion to quash. I showed a good faith basis.
Correct.
If my good faith basis is Mr. Bradley or Miss Yeardy or texts I've seen, it's still a good faith basis. There's no law that says I have to tell them every single good faith basis I have ahead of time. If we did, we would never have trials.
All right, Ms. Merchant.
That's right.
Appreciate the argument of counsel. I think the standard on a motion to quash and a subpoena is not one where we're required to completely flush out and litigate every reason the witness may be relevant. And so we'll take these one at a time with Ms. Yurdy. I'll deny the motion to quash. And if your election and to proceed in your presentation of the evidence is to call her, then that's what we'll do.
Thank you, Judge. So, Mr. Bradley, you may be excused for now. Thank you, but subject to recall. We will call Miss Yeardy.
She's pissed. I would be too.
It's ridiculous.
It's absolutely ridiculous that you have to fight this hard to get a witness on stand. That's already been subpoenaed.
Wow.
The judge has already issued a subpoena. You know, like it's not the. I don't
Would you
know.
like me to
Is
swear
it the
her, Judge, or
attorneys
do
that?
you want-
Is it
I
the
think we
attorneys?
need to make sure. There we go. Deputy Scott, if we could swear in the witness. Ms. Yurdy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right.
Raise your right hand, ma'am. You swear affirm to the testimony you should give a court will be the truth, whether the truth will help you.
I want to know.
Yes.
Would you please state and spell your full name?
I would want to know what. Sorry, I didn't mean to pause it right here, but I would want to know what his motivation would be for trying to quash her testimony, like her attorney. Like what kind of nonsense does he have in his background? Because if she gets on the stand and tells the truth, that's her responsibility as a civil servant. I mean, not as a civil servant, as a human being, just to get on the stand and tell the truth. I don't know why an attorney got involved in her. Yeah, I guess it's just beyond me. I guess I would probably get an attorney too if one of Trump's attorneys sent me a subpoena.
Well, that's pretty. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I was having a coughing fit. Hang on just a minute. I would get an attorney too because especially
Yeah, I mean, thinking about it more clearly, I probably would too.
Mhm.
Because it's such a high profile case, I would want somebody. But then again, you know, like I would probably just want an attorney. I don't know that I would have them fight for me to not testify. I just don't understand the background, the motivations for that. Like, what are the motives for me not to testify? I mean, obviously, you don't want to be the one that's hated because you tanked an anti-Trump case.
Clearly, it's because maybe they are pro plaintiff, I guess. That's what I think.
All right. Well, let's hear what she has to say, and then we can discuss.
Okay.
For the court.
Robin Latrice Yodi.
Thank you, Ms. Yeardy. Thank you for being here. Can you tell the judge when you first met Miss Willis?
In college.
Okay.
So 19,
Long term
probably
relationship.
90 or 91.
Damn.
And have you been friends since 1990 or 91?
Yes.
Okay. When was the last time you spoke with Miss Willis?
March of 2022.
Okay. From 1991-ish till 2022, were you what you would consider good friends with Miss Willis?
Almost
Yes.
30 years.
And did you all share personal information regularly?
Yes.
And did you even come and work with her at the DA's office?
Yes.
And when she needed a place to stay, Did
Well,
you
they're
let her
choosing
stay at your
attorney.
apartment?
Yes.
It was a condo, right?
Condo, yes.
Do you remember approximately when she moved into your condo?
It was April of 2021.
Okay, great. And
That's after the fact.
you know that Miss Willis and Miss Wade met at a conference in
Before.
October of 2019.
I'm clear, but Your Honor, without a foundation for how this witness would know that, if Ms. Merchant can establish she has personal information of that, then certainly that's something the witness can testify to. But if it's, she heard it
Understood,
from
Ms. Cross. All right, Ms. Merchant, if you could lay the foundation.
Do you have information that Miss Willis and Mr. Wade met in October of 2019?
I'm going to renew my objection, Your Honor. Information is not sourced to personal information. If the question can be rephrased, then that may address my concern.
So Judge, I just want to make sure that I understand. So they've objected to me calling Willis and Wade.
It's just a matter of foundation. If you can just rephrase.
Do you have knowledge of when Willis and Wade met?
I'm going to object again. Personal knowledge.
Overruled.
Thank you. Do you have personal knowledge of when Willis and Wade met?
Yes. She told me that they met at a conference. I don't know what.
Okay.
I'm going to renew my objection, Your Honor. Clearly, this is not firsthand information from this witness. It's hearsay that was.
She said she told me.
Yes, it's statement against interest, Judge. If Miss
Well,
Willis,
just pause.
I'm sorry.
Okay, Ms.
Yes.
Cross.
The representation of the witness, the testimony of the witness was that Ms. Willis, District Attorney Willis, had a conversation with her. There is no statement against interest. District Attorney Willis is not a party opponent in this case. The information that the witness has testified to came from Ms. Willis, and we have a hearsay objection to that.
Why wouldn't she be considered a party opponent in this context?
Right.
He's a representative of the state, Your Honor. This isn't private litigation or civil litigation. Obviously, the court's aware this is.
But the
Ms.
hearing
Willis
is
not on
about
trial. Ms.
Willis.
is not a party to the litigation outside her obligation to pursue criminal charges for the state.
Ms. Merchant, I guess it's evolved into a hearsay objection.
Yes, Judge. And we plan on calling Miss Willis to the stand. She's under subpoena, so hearsay will be cured. If there is a hearsay objection as far as that issue. But we do still think that it's a statement against interest. Miss Willis has filed a document that states that they met at this municipal court conference. So
Your Honor, I think maybe I can streamline a little bit. State will stipulate that District Attorney Willis and Mr. Wade met in October 2019 at the judicial conference that we've been talking about. There's no reason to get it secondhand from this witness. Well, that's true.
All right, you accept the stipulation, Ms. Merchant?
yes.
All right.
Am I permitted then to ask questions about that since it's now not hearsay?
If it's just to a stipulation, if it's just to that basic fact, I don't think we need a question, but if there's a follow-up that you
Okay.
think is admissible, go for it.
Ms. Yurdy, you have personal knowledge that Ms. Willis and Mr. Wade began their romantic relationship soon after this time that they met at the municipal court.
I'm going to object to that question. That certainly is a leading question. No foundation has been laid for how this witness would have personal knowledge of that. And until that's happened, the state objects.
Judge,
I think you can do a yes or no and then follow up with how she knows it.
thank you. Do you know if Miss Willis and Mr. Wade started dating in October of 2019?
I don't know if it was October of 2019.
Could it possibly be November of 2019?
Could possibly.
Okay. And when we spoke, you said it was shortly after the municipal court conference, though, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you know that their relationship, their personal relationship began shortly after this municipal court conference.
Yes.
Damn.
And when I say personal, romantic. I just want to make sure we don't get in an argument over what personal and romantic is later. When I ask you personal, do you take that to mean romantic?
Yes.
2019.
And do you understand it that their relationship began in 2019 and continued until the last time you spoke with her?
Yes.
Ooh.
This is somebody that she's known for 30
And
years.
you were essentially her best friend during this time, right?
Not best
What
friend.
did her
friend.
attorney
Good
say
friend.
that
Okay,
she
close
does
friend.
not
And so would you
have information?
frequently socialize with her?
Are you
Lied.
kidding me?
Yes,
That is the information.
And you saw her at work every day?
That is everything.
yes,
So you had a chance to see
Oh
them
my
interact
God.
together on a personal level.
yes,
And so from everything that you saw, heard, witnessed, it's your understanding that they were in a romantic relationship beginning in 2019.
yes.
And
The end.
when you left the DA, oh, I'm sorry, let me ask you. You said
She
that
needs
Miss
to
Willis
recuse
came to
herself.
live with you in
Period.
April of 2021. I'm sorry, April
Goodness.
1st, 2020 or 2021?
She didn't live with me. I never lived with her.
Okay, I'm sorry. She took over your lease in April 1st, 2020, correct?
No, 2021.
Okay, I had it both ways, so I'm glad you clarified. So when she took over your lease in April 1st, 2021, it's your understanding she moved out of the house that she was sharing with her father and started staying at the condo.
Yes,
And is it your understanding that that's because she needed to have her own space
yes,
away from her father?
yes.
When you left the DA's office, was it, were you fired?
Yes.
No, I resigned.
You resigned, okay. Just one moment, John.
I'm just wondering if they're going to try and impeach her because she's like no longer friends with her now. You know, like she's a frenemy or enemy.
Can you tell us why you resigned the DA's office?
Here it comes. Bring in the bad shit.
The number of things that
shit.
was happening.
A number of things that were happening. Is that what you said, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay.
She knows some shit.
What was happening that caused you to resign?
Ooh.
There's a
Under
spiral
oath.
of things. So,
There's a spiral of things.
I guess the last straw is I was put in a department that I knew had no knowledge about. Something happened, and I didn't like it. They didn't like it, and that was it.
Okay.
That was very cryptic.
Did you have any falling outs with Miss Willis?
Yes, of course.
Well, we never spoke after that.
You never spoke after that. Okay. And so you're, without
She
going
knew
into
some
all
bad
the
shit was
painstaking
going
details,
down.
there is no doubt in your mind that from 2019 until 2022, Miss Willis and Mr. Wade were in a romantic relationship.
What's the question?
You have no doubt that their romantic relationship was in effect from 2019 until the last time you spoke with her.
No doubt.
And that's based on your personal observations and speaking with them and seeing them together and things like that.
Yes.
Okay. No other questions. Thank you. The other folks may have some questions for you, Ms. Yurdy.
Stay down.
Want me to go to the?
If it's
Wow, that was exhausting.
more than a couple questions, then sure, but if not,
It's only a couple questions.
Okay.
I think. the court
But
reporter hear me okay?
definitely important.
Ma'am, let me be very
Definitely.
specific. Did you talk with Miss Willis about her romantic relationship with Mr. Wade?
Yes.
Did Miss Willis tell you on more than one occasion that she was engaged in a romantic relationship with Mr. Wade prior to you leaving the district attorney's office?
Did she tell me or did I observe?
I'm staying right now with the tell me.
Yes.
Did she tell you that in the year of 2020?
Yes.
In the year of 2021?
Yes.
Are you certain that Miss Willis told you about the romantic relationship with Mr. Wade prior to November 1st of 2021?
Yes.
Now, did you also have observations of Mr. Wade and Miss Willis together prior to November 1st of 2021?
Yes.
And are those observations, were those in a social setting?
Yes.
And did you observe them do things that are, say, common among people having a romantic relationship?
Yes.
Such as, can you give us an example?
Hugging, kissing, just affection.
All before November 1st of 2021, correct?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Mr. Stocks.
I hadn't seen her testimony. I had seen the guy's testimony, or at least bits and pieces of the testimony. I'm like, dude, you're done. You're cooked. So then they get up on the stand and they start to testify and they contradict everything that she says practically. But all I keep thinking is Clinton. Every time I hear this story, I just think of Clinton. You know, like if he had just said, instead of, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, if he had, and then the dress comes fucking out, you know, and everybody's like, oh, dude. And so then he gets up and he,
too.
Yeah. And so then he gets up and he apologizes for his lie because, you know, everybody's going to understand. He doesn't want to say it in front of the freaking world that he had an extramarital relationship with a fucking 18-year-old in the Oval House, in the Oval Room or whatever. Right. You know, I mean, he doesn't want to admit that to the world, and that's completely understandable. And so when he apologizes, everybody's like, okay, we forgive you. Let's move on. And nobody gives two shits.
That's true.
Because we really don't. But it's the lie. It's not the fact that you had a sexual relationship with that woman, or
it's
that
not
you put a cigar up her hoo-ha, or that you jerked off on her dress. We could give two shits about that stuff because that's understandable.
Well,
you got a penis.
People say that they don't care, you know, that it's the lie itself. But when Trump admitted to what he had done, and he's like, I was human, but I don't do that anymore. I learned my lesson. People still were crucified.
And it wasn't anything that he had done, right? It was just that he had said something derogatory.
Said something and inappropriate, but I think
but there's two standards. There's two standards with everything that Trump does.
True.
I mean, okay, so I go back to every time I hear about the difference between Trump and Biden, it just kind of makes me roll my eyes because I just, you know, this is one of those conversations that can go into like the weeds very quickly. But so you're familiar with the fact that I was born into a cult, right?
Kind of, yes.
I'm sure you've heard it a time or two. But if you haven't heard, my parents were very religious. Let's just put it that way. They were extremely religious. And so from the time I was very, very young, Jesus was always fucking coming back. You know what I mean? Like the Antichrist was going to come out and the revelations was beat into us. We would freaking put water in our tubs at night just in case the end of the world came. We'd have freaking water. You know what I mean? Like that's what I lived with for many, many years. Because, you know, Jesus was coming back, the Antichrist was here. And it started, I think, with Gorbachev. Whenever Gorbachev came into power, I think that's his name, the guy with the big strawberry mole on his face.
Yeah. Yes.
When he came into power, they were like, "Oh, he's the Antichrist," and blah blah blah, and he's going to be the dictator that they named in the Revelations. And then the Cold War ended, and all of a sudden something happened. I can't remember what it was, but then he stopped being the Antichrist, and then it became somebody else. And it was always somebody that was high in power, whether it was Khomeini or Gorbachev, or even Clinton was considered the Antichrist for a little while in my parents' mind. And then he went and had because he was a smooth talker. You know how they say in the book of Revelations that the Antichrist will present as somebody that brings peace to the world for 7 years or something like that, or 4 years, and then the next 3 years is all full of war and pestilation and war and famine and all that other shit.
Mm-hmm.
You're familiar with the book of Revelation, right? I've
Yeah.
forgotten more than I can remember right now at this point.
Right. I mean,
The wine, so you know, I mean, that's one of those things that is not in my brain anymore. I don't know if it's 7 years of peace and then 7 years of war. Do you remember?
I cannot quote that exactly. There's it's a
Well,
little
Google
more.
is my friend, so maybe we'll just Google that shit later. If it weren't for the fact that I like men, I would probably marry Google. Antichrist. Let's see.
We're gonna
This
find out.
This is me on a little bit of vino. Time frame. Antichrist time frame. The chronology of the end times. So you know, when Clinton came out, and the rapture and the second coming. Oh, I don't want to read about all that shit. I just want to know how many years will, if I remember correctly, they gave it a year's. There's the rapture of the church, the rise of the Antichrist. Okay. The end times timeline. There's a whole timeline. And the leader of our group, for some reason, gave it a timeline to where he interpreted the Bible, the verses in the Bible, to say that there was an Antichrist that was going to come to power, and he would be in power for X amount of years. And then when the 7 years of wars and tribulations ended, that's when Jesus would return. And that would be when we get snatched away and we come back. The battle of Gog and Magog, and then eventually we have the new creation, which means that we're going to have heaven on earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, every time it came close to being the time of the end, this group would be like, oh, we need to start prepping for this shit. And then that time would come and go and nothing would happen. And then we would be like, oh, well, you know, I guess the Lord wasn't ready yet. So he's going to, you know, come back later. Like, psych. But it started with in my lifetime, it started with Gorbachev. Well, I can't even say his name right now. But anyway, Gorbachev. There we go. Gorbachev. And butchering that. It's the wine. And then Clinton was it for a little while because he was such a smooth talker. And that's what they said that the Antichrist was going to be, this smooth talker that
and
would
Obama's the Antichrist.
Yeah, well, it was Clinton first, and then he went and had sex with an 18-year-old, and that just ruined everything because you can't have an Antichrist that's horny or something. But anyway, then it was, of course, Bush couldn't be it because he was just from Texas.
No one from Texas can be the Antichrist for sure.
yeah, he's from Texas, so he can't be the Antichrist. And then, of course, Obama came around, and he could be the Antichrist, but he didn't really do much of anything. So there wasn't really, you know, like, he was a good president, but he was very presidential, according to many people. But he didn't really do anything other than bring us Obamacare, which is a fucking disaster. But you know, I mean, he didn't really do anything. So that was kind of like a lame Antichrist. He didn't, you know, whatever. And so Jesus didn't come back for that one. And then Trump gets up there and everybody's like, oh, so it seems like every time there's somebody that's gonna come and be the Antichrist, something happens to either party and they like, I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know if it's because the Democrats feel that they're, like, or the atheists feel like, oh my gosh, the Christians were right. The Antichrist is here. So we need to change the conversation and get rid of this shit. Or it's the Republicans, or not the Republicans, but the Christian people. Sorry, that was a little Freudian slip. The Christian people that get onto that bandwagon of, we're not ready. If this is the Antichrist, we're not ready yet. We still want to do more shit. And so they nix the Antichrist from coming into power. So I don't know which one it is, but every single time somebody comes up and they start calling him Satan or the Antichrist or whatever, something happens to derail them so that they don't get into power, because nobody's ready for Jesus to come back.
Right.
Nobody wants that shit to happen yet. And I just kind of go like, I'm at this point in my life where I want to be done. You know what I mean? Like, I want Jesus to come back already. If he's going to come back, it's going to be in my lifetime. And so if Trump is really the Antichrist, I'm voting for him. If he's going to be the Antichrist, let's just get this shit over with already. Because I'm so tired of that, like, that boomerang and the yin yang or the yo-yo, whatever you want, however you want to call it.
Trump brought prayer back into the White House when Obama banned prayer from the White House.
Yeah, but see, it doesn't say anything in the Bible about the Antichrist being atheist. It doesn't say. It just says that he brings peace to the world. And then and that he's a dictator. And then he won't leave the White House, and so then he becomes the leader of the world. He brings all the countries together, and like the Antichrist is supposed to be somebody that unifies the whole entire world. Yes. And it's a one world power, right? He turns it into one world power.
World order.
The new world order comes about, and then Jesus comes back, and there's the battle of Gog and Magog. The only way that that's going to happen is if we freaking let the Antichrist come to power. And if Trump is the Antichrist, let him goddamn come to power already. Because I'm done with this shit. They keep coming back and forth between, like, oh, is he the Antichrist? Oh, we need to get rid of him. No, let it happen. I'm ready for heaven on earth already.
I think also the one that is the Antichrist, though, is supposed to bring forth paperless money, or like do away with
crypto. Here we come.
Crypto, and then you got crypto, and then
the mark of the beast.
The mark of the beast. Now they're trying to take
the AI.
They're trying to take away all our credit cards and stuff, and they want to put
chips in
us for our banking information. Isn't that crazy that Revelation says all that stuff? I think it's just
but I think it's just the signs of the times. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like in the movies, whenever they come up with some very innovative they come up with some innovative stuff that you don't really even think is ever going to come to fruition. And then, the nerds out there say, hey, let's see if we can make it come true. And
This happened.
Yeah, the whole screen thing and yeah, so I mean, a lot of the technology that we have nowadays is because of the movies. You know, I mean, that's just the way it works.
Well, I was watching something the other day, and it's just incredible to me that all the technology that was around here, that was on the earth.
It's like that Da Vinci Code type shit, you know, like
Yeah, over 1,000 years ago or longer, stuff that we don't even have the technology for now, and they're saying that, and they're like, how did they have that? Because we're learning something from that ourselves right now. There was a lot more
well, like the pyramids, the archaeologists don't really understand how the pyramids came about. But
exactly.
I mean, I think that's the way that things work, though. You have somebody that has the imagination to create something that isn't around, and then you got the builders that will make it come to pass. So, I mean, I think it's a collaboration between imagination and creativity.
Yeah.
And that's the way the world works, really. I mean, that's the way it's been, and that's perfectly fine. So, I mean, the Bible has got that the I'm sure that there's people that have been trying to recreate the Bible and the different revelations things, and then people latch onto that as like, see, no, it's the time of the end. My dad used to do that all the time. It's the time of the end. Everything that was in the Bible is coming to pass. I'm like, yeah, I'm not fucking nerd decided that he was gonna freaking bring that shit up. Whatever. But if Jesus is gonna come back, it needs to come back in my lifetime. I swear to God.
I'm ready.
I'm ready. I need heaven on earth. 'Cause this shit's like for the
heaven.
I know, right? I mean,
Yes.
I'm so exhausted now by this whole stuff. I mean, I just don't I I think we had this conversation once before, but did you ever watch the old, like from 2016, the Democratic and Republican, both of them, the we don't have them anymore, the debates.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever watch the 2016 Republican or Democrat debates or whatever?
Yes.
I rewatched them in 2020 because I needed to, like, kind of refresh my memory. And I remember distinctly when I heard that Trump was running. Like, I don't usually, I listened to politics about this much before when I was in my 30s because it didn't really matter to me at that point. I was so focused on my career. It didn't really matter to me. And so, if somebody said, oh, well, Bush was running, oh, XYZ was running, I would be like, oh, really? Okay, whatever. And when it comes down to voting or whatever, I just voted Republican mainly because I feel like they're a little bit less cultish, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Like the reason why I was raised in a cult, so whenever I see a group of people that are acting very cultish, I kind of go the opposite direction.
Right.
And to me, the Democrats are extremely cultist. I mean, I feel like I'm a little bit liberal in my own personal life, but the way that they act as a group, as a whole, just terrifies the shit out of me.
Right.
I have never, I never will vote for somebody that doesn't have a different opinion than the rest of the group.
Yes.
Like, I don't know how many times I've sat there and watched voting on the floor live, and it's like every single Democrat voted yay or every single Democrat voted nay. And I can't do it. And then you'll
Yes.
get like the straggling Republican here or there. that's the group that I want to participate in, because it
It-
means to me that they have a brain and they're questioning. They're not going to follow. They're not sheep.
They're not going to follow suit.
Yeah, they're not going to just vote because everybody told them to vote that way.
Right.
Somebody told them to vote that way, and they're not going to fall outside that group, because otherwise that would be bad and that would not show unity or whatever. And I'm like, no. That's not the way it works. The way it
Right.
works is you have a brain. You ask questions. You don't just go, "Oh, okay." You say why. You ask fucking questions. Because if you don't ask questions, then you're never gonna have an independent thought. You're just going to be regurgitating and copying the same shit that the person before you did. And that's never healthy.
Right.
That just, to me, I'm not interested in that kind of conversation. I don't tend to lean more towards the libertarian type of mentality. Like, personally, I'll never have an abortion. I never would have had an abortion. I can't have kids anymore. But if I, like, I don't personally agree with abortion for myself, but I would never begrudge somebody else that decision, because it's not my body. It's not my decision. And if you want to have that if you want to have that, I would prefer if you didn't, because I think that, I personally think that it's wrong. It's not something that you're going to be able to live with very easily. But at the same time, it's not my body. I can't
Right.
make those decisions for you. So, I don't know that I'm pro-choice or pro-life. I know that my brain requires that there's some rules. Like, I can't tell you what you can do with your body, but once it gets past a certain point, once it gets past like 10 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
then it's a different conversation.
Right. I think that the whole point with regard to that is the argument for a lot of Republicans is that they don't want to pay for it. They're not for it. They're conservative, but
Mhm.
the Democrats want to pay for those abortions. And I disagree with that.
I disagree with that too. I mean, if you're going to
I'm
have an
sorry.
abortion,
Right. If
it's
it's
a personal
my body,
choice.
I understand it's your body and you're making that choice, but you want me to pay for it, and I don't agree with it. But yet you want me to pay for it, and I don't agree with that.
No,
So
yeah, there's a lot of things that the Democrats do that I don't agree with, as far as like
right,
who's paying for it, the social aspect of the whole entire thing. I don't agree with that. I mean, yeah, we have freedoms. We can choose to do what we want to do, but
mhm,
those freedoms come with responsibilities.
right. That's
I mean,
exactly
just because we have the freedom and the right to choose doesn't mean that we should have somebody else pay those take on the responsibility of paying for it.
right.
I mean, but I've tried to really quite understand the backbone of the Republican and Democrat reasoning. Like, what's the origin story here?
Right.
You can nitpick all of the small details, but
Mhm.
what's the origin story? And I think it came down to two aspects for the Republicans and the Democrats. The Republicans believe that the Constitution is a living and breathing document, and it's unchangeable, unflappable, blah 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 blah. And the Democrats are more like, well, the Constitution is a starting point, but we can still change it based on the social climate and the change and the times. Am I wrong in that?
Well, I think that's what they would like, but
Like the gist of it.
but that was not why. The whole reason why our forefathers came to this country was because that ideology is exactly why this country was formed. They came here to get away from that kind of climate. So that's what kind of.
No, I don't think that's correct either.
Oh,
They
sorry.
came here they came here to get away from the monarchy and to get away from that being a serf, and they wanted freedom from that kind of oppression. I think that's what you're talking about.
Well, they
But the
did.
document itself, like the Constitution itself, the Republicans believe that it's a living, breathing entity, basically, and it cannot be changed. It can be improved upon, but it cannot be changed.
Mm-hmm.
And the Democrats are the opposite, or not the opposite so much as they believe in the document itself, in the Constitution, and the democracy, and the premise of the creation of the United States, but they still feel like the Constitution can be changed based, or like something can be changed based on the social climate. So for instance, that's why they added into the constitution, like rather than just adding to it, they want to change the Constitution to interpret it to the current events, and Republicans are against that. But for me personally, I think that the Constitution is basically kind of sort of like the Bible. It's a guiding tool.
Agreed.
And so I believe more on the liberal side of that equation, where it's a guiding tool, not so much a living instrument.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that it can be changed, but that it's a starting point, and we can add onto it based, like, the civil rights movement and the women's movement, and all of these added onto addendums to it. Kind of like in contract law. You
Right.
add things to a contract all the time, and
Right.
you might even change the contract from time to time. But the basic premise is that you're making a deal. And the basic premise of the Constitution is that we are given these rights. Those
Right.
rights can change over time.
Right.
But
I guess
Yeah.
I guess I misspoke. I'm sitting here thinking that didn't come out right, because yes, you're right. They were getting away from the monarch. Let me clarify that. But I was going somewhere else with that thought, but I didn't get through. So just erase that.
Which is odd. You don't wait. I mean, if you really think about it, we formed the United States so that we can get away from a monarchy and be free. And so, I mean, obviously the United States was not supposed to really be a superpower. We became a superpower over time. And now we're going back to try, like, every single time we have another presidential election. And one of the reasons why I started that conversation about Trump in the first place was because I remember distinctly when somebody told me that Trump was running, that I thought it was a joke. Like, I was like, no, for real?
Right.
Like, I remember distinctly where I was when somebody told me that. And it was my son. And he told me that Trump was running for president. And I just looked at him like he was fucking nuts. Like, Trump is the apprentice. Like, why would he be running for president?
Right.
Like, it didn't make any sense to me. So I looked it up. And so I started watching all the debates, because I had no idea what the hell was going on in politics at that point. And I started watching all the debates, and I was like, holy shit, these debates are horrible.
Right.
Like, the way that these motherfuckers are talking to each other, holy shit, they would not be sitting around my mama's dining room eating dinner for Thanksgiving. They'd never make it. She would be going after them with the fork.
Right.
The way that they talked to each other was just insane. And I remember thinking later on in 2016, whenever I was rewatching those original debates, like, because at first I watched them and I was like, what the hell is going on here? Everybody was being so ugly. And then all Trump had to say was, okay, so going back to 2016, I rewatched them, and all I remember seeing is Trump was standing there at the podium going like this, because it was Rubio and Mark and Cruz, and they would be like battling at each other and saying some really awful shit, and then some other politician would be saying some really awful shit, and all Trump was doing was this and this and this, and then all of a sudden it would be like, and so Trump, what do you think? And he'd be like, oh, I just want to build a wall, make America great again. Like that's all he would say, and the crowd would go, and it was just like, that's all he needed to do. Like all of those other guys that were just biting each other's, trying to bite each other's dicks off, for a nicer way of saying it, but like that's all they were doing. They were being so ugly to each other, and all Trump had to say,
they were
right,
being polished.
And so that's how Trump won, just
Right.
because he didn't participate in the nonsense. He didn't
Right.
participate in any of that shit, and he said some things that made a lot of sense to me, and I was like, whoa, okay, he's different. He's not the same as the rest of them assholes, because they were assholes.
Right.
And I just, I figured, he was the better way to go. It made sense. He's a businessman. He knows how to run a business. And if you really think about it, the government should be run like a business, because we're talking about money here. And the best people that know how to deal with money is a businessman, not an attorney.
Right.
Clearly, attorneys know how to twist the law. If they know how to twist the law, they know how to twist a penny.
Right. There you go. There you go. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. So what we need.
What's that?
What we need is somebody that knows how to take care of the money.
That's it. Follow the money.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's why I voted for Trump the first time around. The second time around, I voted for him because it was that or Biden. And I mean, the first time around, I guess I could have voted for Clinton, because I mean, it would be great to have a woman president. It really would. I would love for females to find their voice and be a president of the United States. But there was no fucking way that I could possibly imagine Clinton as a first man and Mrs. Clinton as the first president. I just couldn't do it.
Right.
That bitch is crazy.
I hate to say it, and I don't mean this. I apologize to all my women livers out there, but women are another, I hate to say it, but it's just a bunch of drama. They're going to find the drama. And I hate to say that, but it's so
when you have to
true.
bleed once a month. Yeah, when you have to bleed once a month, you just don't have the patience for the rest of that shit.
I mean, I'm so over it. It's just like,
just watching The View. Yeah, just watching The View makes me want to like give my woman card back.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I've spent a month with, I mean, I hope nobody that my close family isn't watching, but I've spent a month around a bunch of women, and I'm going to tell you, I came back to two boys, my boys, and they get irritated. They go to the back bedroom, and I'm like, that's it. I love this. I love this. I love men. I love it. I am so over drama. And I was thinking, a woman in the White House? What in the heck? I mean,
look at what we've got with Harris. I mean, she's also useless. I mean, I can't.
Oh my gosh. I mean, what's the point? What is her point? I mean, I don't know. that was the biggest waste of a vice presidency I've ever seen in my life.
I
I mean,
pray every day, and I don't pray because I'm not religious, that Biden makes it to fucking January.
yeah.
Like, I mean, everybody keeps talking about, oh, his age and that FBI report. And I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up.
Right?
Let the old man make it to January. Please. Please. Oh my God.
Right. So we don't have to have that woman in the
I
house.
know, because if that woman becomes the first fucking female president, I will really need Jesus to come back right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I cannot even imagine. That woman should not be representing us in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that she's a Democrat. I could give two shits about that.
Right.
It
Well,
has to do with her personality. When she gets on TV and she starts opening her mouth, I just want to punch her in the vagina.
yeah. Well, I'm going to blame my comment on it's why America got started is because they were getting away from. You know what? I had a Kamala Harris moment. That's what I was gonna start saying. That's so terrible. But no, seriously. Seriously, no, I just wasn't using my head. I was sitting there thinking, that's what we're trying to get away from. What I meant to say was every American here with regard to the Constitution is our foundation.
Mm-hmm.
We build on it. But the
Right.
whole reason why, correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole reason why they came here to get away from the monarchy is because they were, what was that? It's Church of God or Church of
Church and state. They were
it's
pilgrims.
no. Church of England. I'm sorry, Church of England. And so they wanted the freedom to be able to be able to practice Christianity.
Well,
That
their version of Christianity.
Their version of Christianity, but that was the basis of why they came. That was one of the reasons why they came down, and they started this. I mean, and they wrote the Constitution just right. Of course, people will take the Constitution just like anything that they want, and they will twist it and turn it
Interpret
to fit their agenda. I mean, that's what they will do. They're going to do that forever. But at the end of the day, this is what it was about. And I hate to say it, but all the people that say, oh, but that's not what we want. Well, it may not be what you want, but that is what happened, and now people want things different. Okay, I get that. I understand people want, the freedom of religion was the whole purpose of it, though, was so that they could practice Christianity.
And we got freedom of religion. You can practice any religion that you freaking want in this country.
Exactly.
Nobody's going to persecute you for your religious beliefs or your sexual orientation or your gender. I mean, those are, or your age. I mean, they've added so many categories to it that it's ridiculous at this point. I mean, they should just put all others or something on it. It doesn't really matter at this point. Like you're not going to get persecuted, but there is a limit to the stupidity. There has to be.
There has to be.
There has to be limits on when you can get an abortion. There has to be limits on what you're going to teach our children. And there has to be limits on what the government is going to be required to pay for you. There has to be limits. And, the fact that one party over another party doesn't believe in those limits. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I don't know.
Well, they're just playing to their constituents, when
But
they
see,
say
that's the thing. They're not listening to their constituents. They're just coming,
well,
like, for me, in my mind, the politicians will say whatever it is that they want to say to get the votes, to get to get the votes and to get in power. And then after that, they'll just do whatever it is that they believe is correct. Not necessarily what the people actually want. Because if they actually did what like, I've watched a couple of these town halls nowadays, and they're asking questions, and the politicians are regurgitating the same freaking party lines that everybody. I mean, every time I watch Nikki Haley speak, it's like she says exactly the same shit, verbatim. If you recorded one of her statements, you could pretty much just put that on a loop.
right.
It no matter what question you ask her, she always goes back to those exact same talking points.
That is so true.
And Trump does the same thing in retrospect. Trump does the same thing to an extent. He'll say the same thing, maybe in a slightly different way, but he also repeats himself quite a bit. So it's, I mean, he's not really different in that aspect so much, but it's also about what he says and versus just the same party lines. Oh, we got to fix him, make somebody else pay for it. Or I'm going to pay for it. We're going to fix this and we're going to fix that. And I'm like, politicians need to stop telling us what they think we want to hear and just ask us what we want.
Well, that would be a switch.
Like, why not have a town hall where the president doesn't, or the politician doesn't speak at all? He just fucking listens.
Oh, and that's another thing. I would like term limits on the Senate. I think there's too many multimillionaires in Washington right now. Too many. They've been in office too long, and they are that I'm sorry, I had to take a turn right there. But you said something that was, crucial. I mean, they've got to start listening to the people. But I think that they get to Washington and they're there too long, and then they start playing the politics. Just
right, they start getting influenced by the money.
Right, by the money.
Versus, because I mean, they don't realize that 80% of the world is run by 20% of the people. 20% of the people are the ones that actually make the money. The other 80% of the people are the poor people.
Right.
And so they have to listen to the other 80%, not just the 20.
Right.
They start to forget that. Once they get into power, they start to forget that there's 80% of others out there that have issues. And they start just dealing with the 20% because that's all they're, that's the ones that are giving them the money.
Right. That's
when they could just forget about those 20% and they could just talk to the 80% and probably, I mean, it's just, it more than likely, it's probably just because they get exhausted by having to deal with that 80%, because that's a lot of people to talk to and a lot of issues to solve, versus just dealing with 20% of the people. And they're the ones that are going to give you more money, and you're only going to have a few little issues to solve. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with the whole term limits. I don't think that we need to have any McConnells or anybody that's like a career. I mean, so I waffle on that back and forth because, I mean, obviously you want somebody in office or that's going to be in those positions that knows what the fuck they're doing. If it's constantly changing every 4 years, I dealt with this in the military a lot, where you would have a rotation of officers every 4 years or every 2 years. Actually, every 2 years, some of the lower end officers would come in and out, or 3 years, and then every 4 years, the big generals would come in and out. But there was no continuity. You know, like everything changed, all the policies changed, and that's probably why, as a country, we've kind of like the pendulum swings back and forth every 4 years. Well, maybe we need to just change the terms as far as like, okay, the president is not the president for 4 years. Maybe the president is the president for 8 years, because he's going to, and that's it. You know, like he's not going to run for president again. He doesn't get a second term. Maybe politicians need to do the same thing. They need to have a little bit longer time so that they can accomplish the things that they want to accomplish. They can't really accomplish much in 4 years. That time passes like that.
Right.
And so every 8 years, we re-vote for another president, because there's just not enough continuity. There's not enough time for them to actually implement any of their policies or any of the changes and see fruition from them until the next person comes into power, and then they undo everything that the other person did. See what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying. I just
and so nothing ever gets fixed.
Imagine having Biden for 8 years, if he can make it that long.
He's never gonna make it. I would be surprised as shit if he makes it to 2025.
Yeah. No.
Before he loses
on him, but no.
I'm not saying that he's gonna die by then. I'm saying that his brain is just not gonna make it by then. Like his brain is so far gone now at this point. Every time I see him, I see the back of his head get flatter.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, that's like that baby flat head that is laying down way too much. When a baby lays down way too much, they start getting that flat head. And you know that they're not getting the exercise that they need, that the parents aren't picking them up. They're not, making them sit, making them crawl. They're just laying them flat and never going to sit up. And that's what Biden has right now. He's got that baby flat head.
And that's what I'm going to have right now. I'm going to go take a Biden. That's so good. That's
go take a Biden. You're going to go take a Biden. Instead of taking a nap, you're going to take a Biden.
I'm going to go take a Biden. I love it.
We're gonna have to you're gonna have to do a little you're gonna have to do a reel. A TikTok reel. Let's go take a Biden.
I'm gonna take a
Biden. It's already oh my gosh, it's already 1:00 in the morning. What the hell?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. What is this? Wait.
I know, right? And I still haven't eaten all my apples yet. Anyway, all right. Well, I appreciate you coming and hanging out with me, girl.
Yeah.
And we didn't get too far. We only got towards one of the freaking. We didn't even finish the Bradley one, which his is not very interesting.
This is all we need to see. I mean, it's case closed. I mean, are you all stupid or what? I mean, what a waste of taxpayer dollars. I mean, if this
they had a relationship,
say, come on,
You know what? Have you heard the news from today?
No.
The news from today is that they finally, because all throughout this time, they hadn't actually gotten the phone dumps from Wade and Willis yet. So today they finally got the phone dumps, and it was leaked that there was texts and phone calls all the way back to there was texts and phone calls all the way back from 2019 at 4:00 in the morning, 2:00 in the morning, 10:00 in the morning, like come over, blah, blah, blah.
My
all the
my
way back to
gosh.
2019. And then also that they were able to track his phone at her apartment at 2:00 in the
Oh,
morning. Like they were actually able to ping it, like it was at that location.
so all these
And they're
witnesses.
still trying to say that, they're still trying to say that they didn't have a relationship. It's like, dude, shut the fuck up. Just admit it. And then nothing is gonna the worst that can happen to you is that you get removed from the case. Now that you freaking lied on because basically he got up on and testified that they didn't have a relationship. So now he's under oath having lied to the court.
Needs to go to jail. Like the rest
At
of
the
the people
least.
that lie under oath.
Yeah, we'll see. What is he at? But that's apparently today that came down that they finally got the subpoena for the phone records, and it shows that they
Wow.
were either in the same location at 2:00 until 5:00 in the morning, or that they had been texting back and forth the wee hours of the morning and the night between 2019 and 2021. The time frame is crucial between 19 and 21 because 19 and 21 is when the investigation started, and then in 2021 or 2022, I don't remember. No, 2021. 2021 is when he finally, as a special prosecutor, he finally filed in 2021 he was appointed the special prosecutor, and then in 2023 when he filed for divorce, that's when he also filed with the grand jury, or the grand jury came down with their indictment. That's what it was. So those are the time frames that are crucial for the prosecution to show that they were in a relationship.
That's crazy.
It's like, dude, just admit it.
I mean,
Nobody
2021,
cares.
that's 2 years. He was seeing that woman for 2 years. Come on.
She can't claim that it was, it was just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It was an improper relationship. Even if she did start it in 2022 after she appointed him as special counsel, even if she started sleeping with him after the fact, it's still an improper relationship and she should have recused herself.
Right. No doubt.
If she had the relationship before then
Right.
it becomes a slightly different animal, but still the same shit.
Uh-huh.
Still
Right.
not proper. Still
Right.
unethical. Still, you
Still
shouldn't have done it, bitch.
Right. Amen.
Not when it's the former president of the fucking United States. I mean,
know.
really. If you're gonna sue the president of the United States or the former, even the former president of the United States, doesn't matter. He was the fucking president of the United States. You better be pure as fucking white shit.
I hear ya. That is exactly.
You better not have any skeletons in your fucking closet, because that shit's gonna come back to haunt you in a big way.
Right.
And it seems like the Democrats are doing this time and time again. They keep coming back and trying to get anything they can on Trump, and it backfires on them every single time. If they had just shut the fuck up and let him do his 4 years and get the fuck and not even bothered with him, let him fail. If he's gonna fail, he's gonna fail.
Right.
He wouldn't have gotten voted in the second time anyway if he was that bad. But they beat the living shit out of him and turned him into a martyr. So now that 80% is really gonna love him.
Right. Right.
I mean, the little people have some power, and we just haven't been exerting it until now.
I agree.
Anyway, all right. I know, right? I'm gonna stop preaching. Get off my
Hey,
pulpit.
I know
pulpit.
my phone's about to die now.
Gotta plug that bitch in.
I know. All right.
Well, we will have to.
I didn't understand that.
Well, good for you.
Oh. I did not understand that.
Go for it. That was pretty cool. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know what your plans are, but if you want to listen to the rest of it, the best one, I'm not really sure we need to watch the dude plead the fifth or whatever his name is, Bradley. I watched his testimony, and his testimony was basically the same shit. But we should watch her testimony for sure, because I think that one was very interesting. And his testimony, I need to watch his from the beginning, because he was splitting some hairs, man. I mean, he was just doing that Heard shit, the Johnny Depp, Amber Heard.
Uh-huh.
The whole, like, I made the pledge. I whatever. I pledged the money. I donated it. No, it ain't it's synonymous. No, it ain't the fucking synonymous thing. It ain't the same shit. He was doing that stuff all the time. It was just obfuscating, like changing the subject, or not even changing the subject, just splitting hairs or coming up with his own definitions of shit. You're like, no, that's not what it is, dude. Tell the truth. His was very entertaining when I watched a few of his little quips. It's like, what? Right. No, I don't think so. That's not how it works. Such a dude answer.
Well, think about it, Lou. They've been lying to so many people for so long. They think that now they think that they can do it nationally, and that we're all gonna buy it. You know what I'm saying? That's the way I look at it. Now
there was a couple of questions that they had, or that she made.
Their deception is becoming public. And now it's just going to make the Democrats look like idiots. It really is.
If they had just left well enough alone. And that's the thing, is that, don't point the finger at somebody else until you examine the sty in your own eye. Don't throw rocks at glass.
I get it, but I think
what is that? What is the thing? Don't throw rocks, and if you live in a glass house,
something like that. Yeah,
something like that. Unless it's. I mean, it's become a tit for tat world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they come after Trump for every single possible reason, and then they get offended when he fights back. Like, no, you can't unring that bell. Like that they started this fight, and by God, a Republican's gonna finish it.
Right. Well, we've got to talk. We got to do a podcast on the. I've heard that they were going to put on the ballot the secession of of Texas.
That Texas wants to secede.
Secede. I'm sorry. Yeah, secede. The secession. What it's called.
Too much alcohol for you.
I know. Give me another Dr. Pepper. What do they put in this stuff anyway?
I know, right?
But that it's gonna that they want to secede from the
union.
Mm-hmm. So
that'll
that
never happen.
I want to do something on that. That's That's interesting because
It's
they're
spicy.
talking, huh?
It's spicy.
It's spicy and it's happening. And there's people, I mean, there's so many questions with regard to that. I mean, there's so many unanswered questions. Social Security. There, I mean, there's so many things that have to be considered when doing that. But
I don't
I was,
think that, I mean, that would, in order for Texas to successfully secede from the Union, I think that there would need to be a civil war. I don't
well,
think it'll ever happen.
oh, the militia's already been deployed. They are
They're at the
already,
border.
I mean, yeah, they're all at the border. No, well, think about
And
it.
a lot of states are actually, contributing to the National Guard at the border. So, technically we've already got an army force.
But I was reading the other day that Texas is number 9 in the world for the most money. I mean, we have more money in Texas than they have in Russia, than the whole country of Russia. We have
Really?
more billionaires in Texas than in any other place in the world. I was just
Well,
reading. I thought I found that.
we've got Elon Musk and we've got Joe Rogan and we've got Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, and Sandra Bullock.
Four of my favorite people in the whole wide world.
She's not a billionaire, but seriously,
but she's fucking awesome.
More billionaires in Texas. Who?
I'd fuck her. Sandra Bullock. If I didn't like men, I'd definitely do Sandra.
Oh, I love her. She's wonderful. But literally, I mean, I don't know what the United States would do if they didn't have Texas. I'm not saying that they would fold or anything, but they would certainly not be the country that they are today.
We have a lot of industry here. We have a lot of land. We've got a lot of oil. We've got a lot of
resources.
Of resources, but at the same time, and we depend on the rest of the world like everybody else. So, I mean, in order for Texas to secede from the Union, it would take a pretty damn loud bang.
I don't know. People are so fed up. That's
I think that Biden is going to cave at some point. I mean, he's already starting to cave on the freaking immigration stuff. He's not going to win. I mean, it goes back and forth and back.
Oh my gosh.
It's not even worth having a conversation about it because he's not. One party says, "Oh, we need the president to enforce the current laws," and the other ones are just saying, "Well, we gave them." It's not even worth having the argument because they're both wrong. I think they're both wrong. I mean, and they're both right at the same time. Like Biden did come up, or whatever, his committees did come up with some really good rules, but he's the one that broke it in the first place. So he's the one that's more in the fault of, obviously, but it needs to change in a big way to make it easier for immigration to occur in this country. And I think that that's their argument, is that immigration is so hard that it forces people to actually come to this country illegally, or maybe not come to this country illegally, but stay illegally.
Well, the whole reason why Texas wants to have that to secede from the Union on the ballot is because of the predicament that Biden has put us in with regards to the immigration. That's what start
Yeah,
him.
because he's not doing his job.
And I just got back from El Paso, as you well know, and it is a shit show. It is horrible. Horrible. I'm not kidding. My
I don't
mother,
doubt it.
I mean, there is lots of people in El Paso that are like, enough. This is, and that's the sad part. People in the other parts of the country just don't get it. They don't have to live on a border town, and they, out of sight, out of mind. Things don't happen the way that they used to happen. And it's just,
I
really
don't disagree. I mean, I think that it's horrible when you start seeing the kind of crowds that they're seeing at the border right now. And I mean, why the president isn't doing anything. If Dr. Phil gets on Joe Rogan and starts saying there's an issue at the border, some shit is going down and needs to get fixed.
It's
When
horrible.
Dr. Phil has to get on Rogan to say something. I mean, that's like
Right.
That's like double Jerry Springer shit.
Yeah. And the other day, I saw a post and someone said, yes, but we need to help people and all this stuff.
No.
What?
I'm not saying that we don't need to help people. There's nobody in the country, no Republican is saying that you cannot help people. That's the
Thank
freaking
you.
conversation killer right there. We can
Thank
help people all fucking day long. They just need to
Yeah.
come in legally. The word is legally.
Well, here's what I say.
Go to the actual border and fill out the fucking form. Don't try and cross the river with your child and wonder why you died.
Right. Exactly. I agree.
There was nobody there to save your ass that can't swim.
That's right. That's right. Well, I just we could go on and on and on and on about this topic, but
I know. Yeah.
I'm going to go take a Biden. Now that could be one of two things.
A big old dump or a
Could
nap.
be a big old nap, or it could be going to bed.
You could be going to lay on the beach or taking a nap.
Pass it out. Yes.
All right, lady.
Have a
It's
good
been
night.
fun.
Okay. We'll have to do this again, but
Toodaloo,
be
guys.
a little bit more
Oh my
fishery.
gosh, 2.5 hours. We've been
I
jabbering
know.
for 2.5 hours. All right, well, we'll just have to. I heard that they're going to be doing final statements to Monday, and then he's going to be coming up with the ruling on Friday. So if we want to do another one between now and then, we can.
Okay.
I mean, I really think that you need to listen to the rest of them because, I mean, obviously with her testimony, it's kind of like, why the fuck did we even go any further? But obviously they need to corroborate it and they need to, beat that dead horse dead.
I'm going to have to hang on just a sec. I'm taking a screenshot of us. I'm definitely going to have to do my research and watch a little more of these witnesses.
I'm telling you, didn't I tell you it was going to be good?
I mean, my goodness, it's game over with this one. I mean, and her just saying she has no information.
Are you
kidding me?
Right, exactly. The attorney says she has no personal knowledge. She's known the bitch for 30 fucking years. She's got some personal knowledge.
And she had a lot of personal knowledge. It was like exclamation point.
And they're trying to say that she's scared to get on there on the to testify. I'm like, no, she's not scared. Although we haven't seen her being cross-examined yet. They might come up with some shit that I don't know that they're trying to. I mean, obviously they're going to try and impeach her. So we haven't really seen her cross-examination yet. So I've not seen it. I don't know. They might come up with something that makes her testimony invalid, So then therefore we need to keep going with the other ones to see if maybe she's vindictive. Maybe she is pissed because she got fired. She says that she quit. I'm sorry. I'm you know. It's
You're
1 o'clock in the morning.
having fun.
And dude, this thing was full.
Holy moly.
It's
You're
down to
having
here.
fun.
I've had some vino. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna watch anymore, and I'll leave it right there to see what she how she gets in. They're gonna try to impeach her. You know they are. They're gonna try and ruin her testimony. And she might very well have some bias. I mean, obviously, but I think that the bias that they're going to try to allude to is going to be justified. Like, obviously, she left the DA's office for a reason in 2022. Some shit was going down that she didn't agree with. That tells me that there was some nasty shit that she wanted no part of.
Right.
Something unethical was going on.
Right.
Because that's the only reason why you would quit a good job.
Right.
I mean, I'm just saying.
She had knowledge.
She knew some shit.
Well, sayonara. I'm Dr. Pepper and it out of here.
All right. Toodaloo.
Toodaloo.
Have a good night.
Hey, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.